Today, we're going to continue our discussion of positive psychology, looking at how to live well at every stage of your life. So, first, I want to go over some definitions, and I want to talk about the year categories we're going to put childhood into. For instance, we're going to put childhood as ages 0 to 11, youth as 11 to 25, adulthood as 26 to 59, and older from when you're 60 until you die. And so for childhood, we're going to be looking at resilience. So, what is resilience? How do we study this thing called resilience? So, we know resilience is your ability to bounce back from a stressor. So, you need to actually have a stressor and then you need to be able to bounce back from it. But how do you bounce back from it? So, there's some external measurements, which are what is mostly used, as in, are you doing well in school? Are you being able to adapt socially? Are you making good social connections? What's your career trajectory? Those are some of the external measurements. But there's been a debate in the field about whether we should use internal measurements of adaptation. So, how are you feeling emotionally? Do you have good mental health? Those sorts of things. So, what actually can promote resilience in childhood? So, there's very few universal statements about resilience. It seems like there's no magic formula for resistance, but it's a culmination of a lot of different factors. But one of those factors is having a caring adult. This significantly increases the chance that you're going to be resilient. And having positive feelings is another factor for resilience. And so they did one really interesting study in Hawaii where they took a bunch of kids who were at risk, children who were at risk, and they realized that about one third of the population didn't seem to be didn't seem to gain all these negative traits associated to their risk. They didn't seem to have adverse outcomes, even though they were in an at risk group. So, what they realized was these invulnerable children, what they were outgoing and they had several sources of support. But for the kids who did have traumatic life experiences and they did have these stressors on them, um, about 80% of them were able to recover by the age 30. And when they attributed that to, they attributed it most to having a caring adult in their life. So now I want to go over some more of the factors of resilience. And like I said, there is no formula for resilience, but these are some of the factors that can promote resilience. So I've made four categories here. So in the child, what does a child want to possess to be resilient? They want to have self-regulation. They want to have a positive self-perception, positive outlook on life, and a faith or a sense of meaning. And so in the family, it's important to have positive attachment relationships, authoritative parenting. Uh, Obviously, socioeconomic advantages help. Romantic relationships also help between the parents. In the community, some things that can promote resilience are good public health, emergency services, public safety, and pro social organization like clubs and events, stuff like that. Some strategies that we can use to promote resilience is to screen depression from others, educate parents specifically on child development, avoid children going into multiple foster care placements, and organizing activity clubs. So now I want to go back and now we're going to look at youth, ages 11 to 25, and we're going to look at some positive development. What does that mean? What are the factors for it? And we're going to look at some programs and how they've been able to help the youth. So in positive development, I have some factors again, or goals, outcomes for positive development. So what do we actually want to do? We want to have rewarding bonding. We want to promote social, emotional, cognitive, behavioral, and moral competencies. So being competent in all those aspects. We want to have self-determination, fostering spirituality. We want to nurture our identity, create a positive identity, build strong, good beliefs about the future. We want opportunities for pro social development, and we want to establish pro social norms. So, what are some of the misconceptions? So there was this guy called Terman who thought that positive youth development was all just about how smart you are. So he took 1,500 students, 1,500 kids who had an IQ above 140, and he went to go measure them. He thought that they were going to be world leaders. He thought they were going to be the best people ever because they're so smart. And what does it turn out? That IQ and your adult success and your mental health are not really correlated. So IQ is not going to determine your trajectory in life as much as Terman thought it would. So now we're going to look at a positive. We're going to look at a program that has had positive outcomes. So this is called Project Venture. It's an outdoor activity, an outdoor program focused on Native Americans. And they have some classroom activities, but they also have a lot of outdoor treks, community service events, and adventure camps. And so programs like these, and specifically this program, has been shown to reduce alcohol consumption 32% after 30 days. And there is no increase in alcohol or marijuana use for these adolescents, even though the controlled group, they did. So if you are in Project Venture, you're less likely to increase your alcohol or marijuana use than if you aren't. So this is just one of the positive programs that can help adolescent development. And now I want to talk about aging, and I want to talk about adulthood when you're 26 to 59. We're going to talk about what are you supposed to do? What are your life tasks? So a lot of this is unknown. This is still a very early field of research. All of positive psychology is relatively early compared to things like psychiatry and negative psychology or abnormal psychology or just the field of psychology as a whole. But so a lot of it is unknown. But there was this person, psychologist called Erik Erikson, who came up with these stages of life, and these are what the life tasks are sort of based off of. So what are you supposed to do as an adult? So one of the main life tasks is forming a positive identity, finding some sort of intimacy, consolidating your career into a career you like, you enjoy, and becoming stable in that career. Generativity, giving back to the community, helping people out, showing compassion. Integrity, and being the keeper of meaning, which is kind of confusing, but it basically means that it's your job to educate the youth, the adolescents, and sort of give them guidance and wisdom as they age. And so now we're going to look at the final stage of aging, which is an older adult from when you're 60 until you die. And so when we think about aging, what is our goals for aging? So we want to avoid disease, we want to maintain engagement with life, and we want to maintain high physical and mental functioning. And so I have 3 studies here, and I'm going to go through some of their findings and how they were conducted so we can learn about how do we actually achieve this. So there was a MacArthur study, which took a bunch of healthy older adults, the most healthy actually of their group, and then they interviewed them and did a 7-year follow-up. And what they found was support is really, really necessary to maintain proper aging. And so there's a social emotional support, so people being there, caring for you, providing emotional support, and there's an instrumental support. So this could be anything from helping the dishes to be done, for cleaning their house. So it's more of that sort of support. And what they realized is physical activity is also very important to maintain a high level of functioning. And then there was a Valiant study which looked at high functioning elders. So these are very, very high functioning people. The majority of them lived to be over 80 years old. And what they found was for the people who were able to live this long, it was important that they sort of stayed away, especially from smoking, but that they also had a good relationship with alcohol and they weren't abusing alcohol or any substances for that matter. They the people who were successfully able to age had a healthy weight, they had a stable marriage, they had good exercise regimens, they were able to cope adaptively, and they had mature defense mechanisms. And so there's this other study that focused on nuns. And what they did was they actually found 180 autobiographies of Catholic nuns. and they went through and they looked back at their autobiography and they realized that positive emotion was inversely correlated with death. So the higher positive emotion you have, the longer you're gonna age, the longer you'll be alive. Sorry. And so what they also found, or the field of positive psychology as a whole, found that resilience is different in the age and the older as it is for the other groups. So with other groups, it's kind of more about overcoming this obstacle, but for an older person, it's more about acceptance and accepting your life and what your life is going to be, and sort of being okay with whatever thing pops in your way, not necessarily trying to take action against it or do something like that. It's more about acceptance. And with that, I would like to wrap up our conversation on positive psychology and how we can age throughout our lives. Thank you.